Let me talk just a little bit about the book. I'll read from it, and then let's open it up to you. I wrote Fair Game, which was the memoir, My Life as a Spy, My Betrayal by the White House. My publishers maybe put in that subtitle. But it really was a catharsis. It allowed me to sit down and think through and absorb and digest what just happened. That's how I saw it. I sat down at the computer every day and churned out 1,000 or 1,500 words. And it really, because when you're living through something, even though maybe in that moment you think, I will never forget this, the truth is you do, or you mix it up, or your memory is fallible, as we all are human. So that was it was a very, as I say, a catharsis for me. When that came out and was made into a movie in 2010 with Sean Penn and Naomi Watts, Joe and I are very proud of the movie, and it tells the essential truth of what happened. In terms of this next book, how that came about, my publisher, who had been with me at Simon & Schuster, moved over and opened up his own imprint with Penguin. His name is David Rosenthal. And he said, well, what do you think about a spy thriller? I don't know. I had never written anything other than intelligence reports and this memoir prior to that. So, and he was the one who suggested, sort of like a blind date, he said, well, let me connect you with a very good writer who happens to live in Santa Fe, Sarah Lovett. She is an established thriller writer on her own, and by happy happenstance, she's also in Santa Fe. And we met, and we hit it off. We said, well, let's see how it goes. And at least for me, and I think Sarah would say it as well, we wrote the book we wanted to read. And by that I mean I do a lot of eye rolling, watching CIA movies or Homeland. I know there'll be a question about Homeland, TV stuff. Female CIA characters tend, to my mind, be extremely cartoonish. They're just paper dolls. There's hypersexualized, hyperphysicality, all of which is very entertaining, but it's not realistic. And I wanted to write a female protagonist that was still entertaining, but much more grounded in what I knew. And I had so many, frankly, I have so many stories and characters that I met along the way that I couldn't put into Fair Game. If anyone has seen it, there's a lot redacted, not because it's endangers national security, but again, the political retaliation part of that. But this allowed me, in fictionalizing everything, they backed off. We were no longer, Joe and I were no longer the bête noire of the administration, and they really, I still have to submit all my manuscripts to the CIA for their review, and happily Blowback went through with very few revisions. And hopefully it's the start of a long and successful series. As I said, I enjoy a good James Bond movie as much as anyone else. I love Jean Le Carré. Homeland was good, the first season. I would tell you I'm deep in writing, Sarah and I are deep in writing the second one, which is sort of like a term paper. It is due the end of this month. And I feel like my learning curve is very steep, but I'm catching on, and it's much more fun this time, and I think the second one's going to be even better. So let me just take a few moments. I'm going to read from Blowback, just the opening scene, and what I'm going to do, because I don't want to take up too much time reading, I'll try this. I haven't done this before, but I'm going to try to skip a few pages. Hopefully it won't be too confusing. You'll get the gist of it. And then I look forward to having Joan open up to question for distance. Arash walking briskly along the Haupt Allée, the recognizable hitch in his stride, his coat flapping slightly in the breeze, a tuft of blue-black hair falling over his high forehead, 5 o'clock shadow emphasizing his softening jawline. Relief at the sight of him surged through her, its intensity catching her off guard. Vanessa handed off her prize to the tearful child. She barely registered the mother's surprised thanks because she was already moving to meet Arash. She quickened her pace to reach him while he was still in the main avenue. Abruptly, a small shock ran through her body, the burn phone in her pocket vibrating. Arash was no more than 10 meters away, and he pulled up straighter when he saw her. His step lightened. With her fingers pulling the phone quickly from her pocket, she tensed reflexively. She glanced down to read one word, Ephesus. Abort, Vanessa thought? Code to call off the operation? No fucking way. Headquarters didn't have eyes on this off, so why were they calling her off? Why was Chris calling her off? Had something gone seriously wrong, or was it overcaution on the side of headquarters? But she was too damn close now to abort. Arash had always brought her solid intel. She shoved the phone back into her pocket, pressing forward even as Arash slowed for an instant. Had he seen her hesitate? She strode the last few paces, close enough to read his face, strain, exhaustion, the flash of urgency, but still he managed a twisted half-smile. She slipped her arm through his and whispered, "Am I glad to see you? Now look happy, I'm your girlfriend." Arash slipped her hand, almost stumbling as he tried to match his step with hers. "I don't know if you'd still be here." "I'll always wait for you as long as I can, but what happened? Why are you late?" He shook his head. "The Sepa watched me. They watched us all. I had to wait until I could get away." Sepa, literally army, was a term used by many Iranians to refer to Iran's Revolutionary Guard without expressing loyalty to the regime. "Are you positive you weren't followed?" "Yes." He hesitated a second before answering. "I was very careful. I did everything you taught me." All right, that's good." But she pictured Arash as he hurried toward the meet, vigilant, pausing anxiously to glance into shop windows, looking for familiar reflections. Was that enough? Was she putting him in harm's way? "What I've got, it's very important," he said, slowing almost imperceptibly. "How much will your government pay?" "The usual transfer to your account?" She shook her head, impatient now, steering him away from the avenue, into the park and the neat rows of chestnut trees. It wasn't like him to ask about money. "You know there's no time for renegotiation, not right now. Arash, tell me what you know that's so important." "Do you remember your promise? If anything happens to me, you'll take care of my family?" "Of course I remember. I promise. I swear I'll keep them safe." "You've been looking for a long time for the weapons facility that you suspect Boot, your ghost, is operating." Vanessa tensed internally at the mention of Boot. She'd been hunting this phantom-like arms dealer and nuclear proliferator for 3 years, since the first rumors of his existence began surfacing in international intelligence communities. "Boot?" She forced herself to breathe normally. "Yeah, we've been looking for an Iranian weapons facility linked to him." "Well, I've seen it," Arash said, his voice gone flat. I'm going to... She lumbed over grass, tearing a path through the chestnut trees. Her body quickened as adrenaline surged. The bike accelerated, a Suzuki, showing divots on a man and woman entwined on a blanket. They bolted up and the woman cursed loudly in German. The driver, thick-shouldered and masked in black, skidded into a half-turn, dodging low-hanging branches. 40 meters away now, headed for Vanessa and Arash. "The pavilion!" Vanessa hissed, pushing Arash toward it. The bike swerved past a group of teenagers beneath the trees. Vanessa got a first look at the biker's gloved right hand. "Gun!" Ready now, she pulled Arash with her until he matched her stride. She felt the motorcycle closing the distance. 5 meters to reach the pavilion, too far to make it. Arash stumbled over a tree root and she grabbed for his jacket, pushing him down, sheltering him. The Suzuki pulled even with him, splattering dirt, the helmeted driver braking as he looked their way, almost close enough that Vanessa could see their reflections in his helmet shield. He aimed a black pistol. Vanessa's fingers contracted reflexively, cutting into her palm. She cursed the rule that kept Knox from carrying guns without express permission. But he didn't fire. Toy gun? Abruptly, the biker peeled into a hard right turn, raining turf in his wake. A sick joke? The reprieve brought her to her feet. "Stay down," she told Arash. She scanned the area around them. She had to get them away from here to a safe house as possible. Later, she couldn't be sure what caught her eye. The glint of metal through the far trees, the slightest motion in the distance where the ground rose slightly and a sniper could take a shot. Instinctively, she turned toward Arash. He was halfway to his feet. She felt the rush of air between them and heard a small, hard snap. A piece of tree bark slapped her cheek as she reached out for Arash. "No!" And she saw the fear and confusion in his eyes. Almost instantly, there was a second hiss of air, a second snap of sound, and Arash's head jerked back and his body seemed to hover for an instant before it crumbled to the ground. Vanessa dropped to her knees next to him. The bullet had hit her between the eyes. A shudder ran through her as his death registered viscerally. Then shock shut her down, leaving only the instinct for survival. I think I'll leave it right there.